What if you had the power to hear every woman's thoughts, without uttering a single word? That's exactly what happens to the hero of our story. Today we'll follow how he uses, and misuses, this extraordinary gift and how far it takes him. Our story begins with Nick Marshall, a sharp and confident man working at a bustling advertising agency. Nick was raised in Las Vegas by his single mother, a former showgirl. Growing up surrounded by glamorous women, he developed the belief that he completely understood them. He was once married to a woman named She, and together they have a 15-year-old daughter, Alex. But Nick never built a real connection with his daughter. She eventually left him and recently remarried a man named Ted. Despite all this, Nick's life seems to be on track. He's confident, skilled, and exceptionally good at his job, an expert at selling ideas and products to anyone. Even after his divorce from She, Nick's life is far from lonely. He's surrounded by women, including Lola, a barista he's been secretly infatuated with. Nick has a natural charm. He knows exactly how to impress women and draw them in. One morning he heads to the office, confident that today he'll finally get the promotion he's been waiting for. But things take an unexpected turn. His boss informs him that women have become the primary consumers in their advertising market. Because of that, the company has decided to appoint a new creative director. Hearing this, Nick's excitement fades instantly, replaced by deep disappointment. He's convinced no one in the office works harder or deserves the promotion more than he does. A short while later, Gigi invites him to her wedding celebration. She happily tells him that after the ceremony, she and her new husband will be off on a 2-week honeymoon. In her absence, Nick will need to take care of their daughter, Alex. While they talk, Nick learns something that surprises him. Alex has started seeing a boy named Cameron. Nick isn't thrilled about the idea of his daughter having a boyfriend. But Alex doesn't pay much attention to what he thinks. Soon after, we see Darcy again. Nick's boss formally introduces her to the entire team. She steps forward with confidence and delivers a motivating speech. To kick things off, she hands each employee a box filled with women's products, explaining that they need to come up with a creative concept inspired by those items for the next day's presentation. Later that night, when Nick gets home, he sits down to brainstorm ideas that could appeal to female consumers, but nothing clicks. Out of frustration, he decides to experiment. He turns on a pop song from his daughter's playlist, hoping to get into the right mindset, and starts testing the items from the women's product box one by one. As he's awkwardly trying on a bra for his research, Alex suddenly walks in with her boyfriend, Cameron. Shocked and embarrassed, she immediately sends Cameron away. Nick hurriedly tries to explain that it's all part of a creative experiment for work, but Alex isn't buying it. She snaps at him and storms off to her room. Still struggling to come up with a new advertising concept, Nick keeps experimenting late into the night. Absent-mindedly, he picks up a hairdryer and starts fooling around with it. But in a sudden accident, he slips and falls into the bathtub, still holding the dryer. A powerful electric shock surges through him, knocking him unconscious. The next morning, his housekeeper Nikki arrives to clean the place and wakes him up. Seeing the chaos and all the women's products scattered everywhere, she looks puzzled, clearly wondering what he had been up to. Nick quickly explains that it was just a work-related experiment. But before he can say more, Nikki looks surprised and replies, "I didn't say anything." Then in her mind she thinks, "I'll go on a date with my boyfriend today." To her astonishment, Nick hears her thought, and casually wishes her good luck. The maid, shocked, repeats, "I didn't say anything." When Nick steps outside, he suddenly begins hearing the thoughts of every woman around him. Some worrying about coffee machines, others about their boyfriends. At the office, things get worse. He hears his female coworkers' thoughts. Some think he's dumb, others assume he's gay, and a few mock his looks. Nick realizes he can now hear every woman's thoughts. After hearing countless voices in his head, Nick finally realizes the truth. He can actually hear what women are thinking. But he has no idea why this is happening to him. Testing his new ability, he discovers that a colleague named Darren is secretly planning to end her life. He also learns that his secretary, Annie, is miserable working for him and even uses the office phone to call her boyfriend out of spite toward the company. Overwhelmed by the non-stop voices of women's thoughts around him, Nick finally loses patience. He opens the phone book to call a doctor. But before he can, a coworker appears and drags him into a meeting. Inside, Darcy is already there with the rest of the team. Using his strange new gift, Nick cleverly says all the right things, exactly what women want to hear, instantly impressing Darcy and everyone else. Later that evening, when he returns home, Nick finds Alex getting cozy with her boyfriend. Furious, he immediately orders the boy to leave. Alex, furious, starts yelling at her father, saying whatever comes to mind. Meanwhile, Nick grows exhausted from constantly hearing women's negative thoughts about him. Desperate to return to normal, he grabs the same hairdryer and steps out into the rain, hoping another electric shock will undo the effect. But nothing happens. The next day, he visits a therapist and explains everything. At first, she laughs it off, thinking he's joking. But when Nick accurately repeats what she's thinking, she's stunned. To be sure, she decides to test him by thinking something very specific. When Nick repeats her exact thoughts, the therapist is stunned. She finally believes him. She tells Nick that he's incredibly lucky, as he now holds the rare power to truly understand what women want. With this gift, she says he could practically rule the world. Realizing she's right, Nick becomes thrilled. Wasting no time, he decides to test his new advantage on his crush, Lola. Using his ability, he says everything she longs to hear, and effortlessly wins her over before asking her out on a date. Lola happily agrees to go out with him. After that, Nick starts improving his relationships at work. He gives Annie a card for her boyfriend, hoping to cheer her up, and helps Darren with her tasks. Later, he meets with Darcy and, by listening to her thoughts, learns she's secretly working on an important project to save the company. They talk for a while, and during their conversation, Darcy finds out that Nick has a daughter who's about to attend her prom. Knowing how special a prom dress is for a young girl, Darcy encourages Nick to be there for Alex and support her. When Nick gets home, he finds Alex chatting with her friends about the upcoming prom. He greets them warmly, but at first the girls see him as a strict, grumpy dad. Determined to change that impression, Nick quickly shifts his tone. He acts kind and caring, offering to buy Alex a prom dress and apologizing for how he behaved earlier. Later, Nick goes on his date with Lola, and using his unique ability, he makes the evening perfect, saying all the right things and turning it into a night she'll never forget. Later, when Nick and Lola go back to her place and things start to get intimate, he feels awkward and unsure of himself. Lola, frustrated, begins silently cursing him in her thoughts for not doing it right. Listening carefully to what's running through her mind, Nick adjusts and follows exactly what she wants, and soon Lola is completely satisfied and impressed. After that, Nick starts paying closer attention to women's expressions and emotions. He begins communicating better, truly listening and understanding their feelings instead of just trying to charm them. Nick begins spending more time with Darcy, secretly taking credit for her ideas while pretending to support her, and Darcy starts to believe they have a lot in common. Feelings of admiration slowly turn into affection. At the same time, Nick's relationship with Alex begins to heal. He helps her choose the perfect prom dress, and through this, a real bond starts to form between them. One evening at dinner, Nick speaks honestly to his daughter. He says, "I think your boyfriend might not be serious about you. If you're not ready and want to wait for someone who truly cares, don't let him get too close." Hearing this, Alex gets upset and tells her father to stop being so overprotective. She thanks him for the dress but walks away angrily. Later, Nick spends more time with Darcy. During their conversation, she opens up about her ex-husband, and through her thoughts, Nick realizes how much emotional pain she has endured. As they talk, their connection deepens and they eventually share a kiss. But as Nick grows closer to her, he starts to genuinely fall in love, and guilt begins to set in. He knows it's wrong to keep invading her mind and pretending. When Darcy finally leaves, Nick looks up and notices Lola watching them from outside. Lola, furious and heartbroken, confronts Nick, telling him how hurt she is that he never called her after the night they spent together. Feeling ashamed and not wanting to hurt her anymore, Nick panics and blurts out that he's gay, adding that if he weren't, he would have married her. Lola, though confused, believes him and walks away. On the day of the big presentation, Nick brings along Darcy's ideas, but guilt weighs heavily on him. Unable to take credit for her work, he asks Darcy to present it herself. She shakes her head and says, Darcy smiles and says, "These ideas are yours, so you should be the one to present them." Just before the meeting, Nick runs into Darren and learns the heartbreaking truth. She'd been thinking about ending her life because of him. He had kept her stuck in the same position for 2 years without recognizing her efforts. Despite the guilt, Nick goes on to deliver a brilliant presentation, impressing the board members and winning the project for the company. He gets all the praise, but inside he feels awful for betraying Darcy's trust. That night he begins writing a letter to apologize to her. Before he can deliver it, Darcy arrives, excitedly taking him to see the new house she just bought. As she shows him around, they share heartfelt moments together, growing even closer. The next day, Nick meets with his boss and is thrilled to hear he's been promoted to creative director. But his excitement quickly fades when he also learns that Darcy has been fired, as the boss believes she contributed nothing to the big presentation. Hearing this, Nick feels crushed. He immediately confesses that the entire presentation was actually Darcy's idea and pleads with his boss to give her job back. Just as Nick prepares to go find Darcy, he hears that Darren, the woman who had once planned to take her own life, hasn't shown up to work that day. Worried, Nick rushes to Darren's house to make sure she's okay. On his way there, a sudden explosion from a power pole sends a bolt of electricity straight at him. But strangely, he feels nothing and keeps going. When he arrives, he finds a suicide note which makes his heart sink, but moments later he sees Darren alive. Relieved, he tells her that she's getting a promotion, hoping to fix the damage he caused. Darren is overjoyed. As they talk, Nick suddenly notices something different: the silence in his mind. He realizes he can no longer hear women's thoughts. The electric shock must have finally made him normal again. Afterward, Nick goes to Darcy's house, but the door is closed. Thinking she isn't home, he leaves a heartfelt voice message outside her door. Soon after, she calls him in a panic. She can't find Alex anywhere. Alarmed, Nick rushes to the prom to look for her. Eventually, he finds Alex in the washroom, crying. When he asks what happened, she tells him her boyfriend broke up with her and left. Nick gently says, "I'm very proud of you." Hearing this, Alex finally calms down. She wipes her tears, steps out of the washroom, and for the first time calls him Dad. Smiling softly, she says, "Take me home, Dad." In the next scene, Nick is seen tenderly tucking his daughter into bed, the bond between them finally healed. Later that night, Nick returns to Darcy's house. Standing at her door, he finally confesses everything: how he once had the power to hear women's thoughts and how he used that ability to steal her ideas just to earn a promotion. He admits his mistakes and says softly, "I misused that power at first, but it's also the reason I truly fell in love with you." After speaking from his heart, Nick turns to leave, but Darcy stops him. Smiling gently, she says, "I forgive you. I like you too." They share a warm, emotional kiss and the story comes to an end. So friends, if you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We'll be back soon with another amazing story.